Hello and Assalamualaikum. My name is Azaz Safisha Bitiawangani and welcome to our video presentation for today. Our group consists of 5 members, including me, and they will be presenting their own parts, which is analyzing this whole podcast thing. So, Jom Sembang is a Malaysian podcast that invites other Malaysians or their friends to chat about the little things in life that unites them as anak Malaysia. Why did we choose this podcast as an example for our project? Is because there is some agree to disagree in their conversation that enriches the understanding of one another. So today we will be analyzing the one of the episode, which is episode 83 of Jom Sembang Malaysia, titled Understanding Our Gen Z Friends. So this podcast actually involve three speakers. The first speaker, the second speaker, and also Nicholas, which is the intern, the Gen Z. So this podcast seemingly it involves different races, different age gap, and we chose this podcast is because it shows us how the fluidity in conversation despite the difference in the age gap. This episode explores how Gen Z views life, work, and also responsibility, and I'll be breaking down the linguistic strategies that's be used in the conversation, including contrastive framing, generalizations, and also how turn taking reflects social norms.
Okay, so first of all, we are going to see patterns of turn taking and interruption across genders in this podcast. The turn taking is largely dominated by the two female hosts, which is speaker 1 and speaker 2. Both of them always lead the conversation by asking some question and then the shifting topics, while Nicholas, the male guest, plays a more passive role during the whole podcast. Okay, for example, when Speaker 1 asks Nicholas, internship is considered your first job, right? Okay, and then Nicholas just answer directly and without any much more information unless it is prompted. Okay, Nicholas also used some hedging phrases like I think and like, which show that he is not confident while talking during the whole conversation. Okay, both of the hosts also interrupt Nicholas while talking more frequently, but this type of interruption, it's not considered as they are trying to control Nicholas, but it's more to supportive. For example, there's a time when Nicholas say they want to, and then speaker 2, let's have fun. Okay, it shows that they are sharing this. They share the same understanding, the same thing. They understand the same thing, which is it's not considered as rude, but it's more to share the same thought. Okay, according to Tenen, this type of interruption is typically a female conversation style, which is it's normal. The host also use verbal cues like okay to support Nicholas, especially when he seems unsure with his answer, which this kind of situation aligns with the idea of rapid talk as explained by discourse analyzer, which is listener use cues such as or okay to show that they are clearly engaged in the conversation. Okay, so in short, both of the hosts, which is female, which is speaker 1 and speaker 2, maintain to control the flow during their whole conversation, during their whole podcast, while Nicholas, the male guest, remains responsive and cautious. Okay, this situation reflects gender patterns in conversational roles, okay, where women often manage flow and connection, and men may take a backseat in unfamiliar and structured settings. That's all from me. Thank you.
Next, I'm going to talk about how power and status shape conversational dynamic. First of all, power is about having control over decision, resources, or outcome. Status, on the other hand, is based on how much social respect or admiration someone gets from others. Both of these can affect how people communicate in a group. People with higher power or status tend to talk more, interrupt others, and control the topic. Those with lower status, like intern or younger individuals, usually speak less and are more likely to follow the lead of others. In a conversation, who talks most or changes the topic isn't random. It often reflects who hold more power or status in the group. In our transcript, the two older female hosts clearly take the lead. They ask most of the question and often interrupt Nicholas, a younger intern. A good example is in line 12, where Nicholas say, "I was like, okay, I'll find out." And speaker 2 cuts in with, "They want to," trying to finish the sentence, but Nicholas kept going, "Have fun, but everything." This show he tried to maintain his point, but the power imbalance is clear. The host feels free to take over. So power and status affect who speak and who get interrupted, and we can see that play out clearly here. Next, I'm going to talk about the influence of identity in conversation. First of all, let's look at how identity, especially age, gender, and role, affect conversation. First, age and generalization differences are clear. The hosts often compare their work ethic to Nicholas, and younger speakers like him are subtly portrayed as less committed or serious. This reflects common generalization stereotype. When it comes to gender, it's interesting to see that despite being women, the hosts still dominate the male gaze. As Hussein 2021 points out, in some settings, women interrupt men more, which challenges the traditional idea that men always lead conversation. Finally, their institutional role as co-hosts matters. It gives them the power to interrupt, ask questions, and control the flow, showing that job role can outweigh gender norms in how conversations are managed.
Hi, I'm Nurul Anshakira binti Mak Usaidi, metric number 1241189. And for my part, I will explain to you how does the setting, informal or formal, affect turn taking on this podcast. So in this podcast, it shows that the podcast is in informal settings. It allows the speakers which are the moderators and the guests, to interact in a much more natural way and in spontaneous way. Unlike formal meetings, the turn taking is usually controlled by a moderator. But here, the speakers self-select their turns, like speak when they feel they're ready and not when they're told to. For the effects of turn taking, in this podcast, I noticed it has three effects. First are frequent overlaps and interruptions. In this podcast, it shows that frequent overlaps and interruptions actually is not seen as disrespectful or rude. Instead, that there are signs of active listening and engagement, like when someone laughs or agrees mid-sentence when one of them speaks. It's also actually help and keeps the energy high and makes the conversation feel more personal. Next is code switching. Yes, we hear a lot of code switching between English and Malay language. This shows how the informal setting supports more culturally authentic and inclusive communication between the speakers, and especially when the speakers in this podcast are from different ethnic backgrounds. And the last effect of turn taking in this podcast is encourages equal participation. Besides of having different ethnic backgrounds between the speakers, they're also both younger, younger and older, and male and female speakers. They seem to have equal space to talk to each other. Unlike formal settings, it usually shows a strong hierarchy between the speakers when they tend to speak in a formal way and more respectfully words. And what I noticed in this podcast also, where the speakers, the moderators and the guests, they tend to use a lot humor and storytelling, which make it more comfortable to talk to each other. In conclusion, the informal setting leads to the style of taking, more collaborative and fluid, making the discussion between the speakers more engaging.
In this podcast, Nicholas challenges the idea that Gen Z is lazy and entitled. Nicholas admits he doesn't give his all at his part-time job, but he's clear when he finds a job he truly wants, he truly cares about, he will fully commit to it. As he put it, whenever I get a job that I want, I will do my best. This supports McJay's 2012 point that young adults are motivated by purpose and identity, not just the paycheck. Nicholas also softened the stereotype that Gen Z disrespect the authorities. Though he prefers flexibility, he also follows the rules when expectations are clear. He admits being blurred at first, which highlights the need for guidance, not the refusal to cooperate. Abrams and Von Frank 2013 explained that such misunderstanding of terms come from the communication gaps and not disrespect. In this podcast, there is a stereotype that is confirmed by Nicholas, which is doing the bare minimum, where Nicholas openly admits to doing just the minimum, saying things like they ask to do, then do. And as long as I get money, it's good enough. John Twain's 2017 notes in iGen that Gen Z workers may need clearer structure and support to stay engaged. Lastly, Nicholas reflects that Gen Z's strong value on personal freedom. He makes decisions based on what he feels is right and draw a hard line between work and personal life, saying, now I can get on with my life. In conclusion, Nicholas showed that Gen Z is not rejecting work, they are redefining it, and their values may differ, but their sense of responsibility and purpose is still strong, just shaped by new expectations.
So, linguistic strategies are techniques that we use, whether speaking or writing, to communicate, to influence others, or to achieve specific goals. But in this dialogue, we see that linguistic strategies are to express their opinions and interrupt politely, and also reflects their social values, especially around work or generational identity. One key strategy that's being used in this conversation, in this dialogue, is contrastive framing. Contrastive framing is actually when two speakers are sharing their opposing views to highlight different in values. For instance, speaker one, when she expressed her opinion that my generation didn't want to have fun, we just wanted to work, and Nicholas views opposed to it by saying, in my generation we just want to have fun. So this clearly shows a contrast in their opinion, and also a shift from seeing work as an identity to seeing work as a way of fun enjoyment. So this situation is being supported by Isabella in 2018, when she says that younger generations tend to live in the future. The tendency of them to be free, rather than the older generations are more rooted to their current life. They are more tied to work and responsibility. Another strategy that we see is generalization. So this is when a speaker takes a personal observation and applies to a whole group. For example, I can take is when Nicholas mentioned, in Gen Z everything is self-centered, and then the speaker one responds with 80% of my friends were like that. So this broad statement helps them to strengthen their point, but also it reflects their cultural stereotypes, and also it helps with the shape their group identity. So through contrastive framing and also generalization, we can see how language not only reflects but also shape generational perspectives. So in the dialogue, we can clearly see an interview hierarchy where speaker one and speaker two acts as a senior interviewer, guiding the flow and also directing questions to Nicholas, who is the intern, the Gen Z, in this conversation. However, despite the structure, the conversation remains fluid and also respectful. For example, when Nicholas pauses and then speaker two gently jumps in, not to interrupt, but to keep the conversation going. This reflects how this reflects a common norm in Malaysian communication culture, where respect for seniority exists alongside the more collaborative and informal style of speaking.